The galaxy had never seen anything quite like the collective of enlightened beings. They were old, ancient, in fact. Their civilization had risen when humanity was still learning to walk upright on a small blue planet in a manned, unremarkable corner of the Milky Way. They had built empires, destroyed them, rebuilt them, and eventually decided that physical conquest was beneath them. They had evolved beyond such primitive concerns. Or so they believed. Ambassador Veleth stood on the observation deck of the collective's diplomatic station, his four eyes scanning the starfield before him. His gray skin shimmered under the artificial light as he prepared himself for the meeting ahead. The humans were coming. The young species that had burst onto the galactic scene just 3 centuries ago. The species that had somehow managed to build an empire spanning 400 star systems in what the collective considered an embarrassingly short amount of time. The humans called it the Terran Imperium. The collective called it a problem. Veleth had studied the humans extensively. He knew their history of violence, their constant wars, their seemingly endless capacity for destruction. But he also knew something else about them. They responded to moral pressure. They cared what others thought of them. This weakness, Veleth believed, would be their undoing. The human delegation arrived precisely on time. Their shuttle docked with mechanical precision, and moments later, Admiral Helena Cross walked through the airlock. She was not what Veleth had expected. The woman was tall for a human, her gray hair cut short in military fashion. Her uniform was simple and practical, bearing none of the decorations that other species like to display. Behind her walked 3 officers, their faces revealing nothing. "Ambassador Veleth," Helena said, her voice calm and measured. "Thank you for arranging this meeting. The Imperium values diplomatic solutions." Veleth smiled, though the expression was difficult for his face to achieve, as does the collective, Admiral. "Please, let us retire to the conference chamber. We have much to discuss." The conference chamber was designed to impress. Holographic displays showed the vast expanse of collective territory, thousands of star systems marked in soft blue light. The collective space dwarfed the human territory shown in red. This was intentional. Veleth wanted the humans to understand their place in the galaxy. "I will speak plainly," Veleth began once everyone was seated. "The collective has concerns about the Terran Imperium's expansion into the neutral zone. Specifically, your colonization of the Kepler Reach systems." Helena nodded slowly. Those systems were uninhabited. They fell within the boundaries established by the Galactic Accord of 2847. Our colonization is entirely legal. "Legal, perhaps," Veleth said, leaning forward. "But is it moral?" The collective believes that rapid expansion shows a disregard for the natural development of lesser species who might one day evolve in those regions. Your presence there disrupts the cosmic order. Helena's expression did not change. The cosmic order? Yes. The collective has served as guardians of moral development in this galaxy for 50,000 years. We have guided countless species toward enlightenment. We have prevented wars, stopped genocides, and maintained peace. This authority comes not from military might, but from moral superiority. We ask that humanity recognize this authority and withdraw from the Kepler Reach. The room fell silent. Helena looked at her officers, then back at Veleth. When she spoke, her voice remained perfectly calm. "Let me make sure I understand. You want us to abandon 6 colony worlds, home to 40 million human citizens, because you believe your moral authority supersedes our legal rights?" Veleth spread his 4 arms in what he hoped was a reasonable gesture. "We are not unreasonable. The collective will provide humanitarian assistance for the relocation. We will even offer the Imperium favorable trade agreements as compensation. But the withdrawal must happen. The moral fabric of the galaxy depends on it." Helena stood up. She walked to the holographic display and studied it for a long moment. "Ambassador, how many warships does the collective currently have in active service?" The question caught Veleth off guard. I fail to see how that is relevant to our discussion. Humor me. Veleth hesitated before answering. The collective maintains a defensive fleet and approximately 2,000 vessels. But as I said, our authority does not come from military strength. Helena nodded. 2,000 ships. And how many soldiers? Ground forces? The collective has not maintained a standing army for 3,000 years. We have found that moral persuasion is far more effective than physical force. I see. Helena turned to face Veleth directly. Ambassador, the Terran Imperial Navy currently operates 18,000 warships. We have 400 million soldiers in our ground forces command. Every citizen of the Imperium serves 2 years of mandatory military service, giving us a trained reserve of over 8 billion individuals. Veleth felt something cold settle in his stomach. Admiral, threatening the collective would be unwise. Our influence spans the galaxy. We could turn every species against you. Helena shook her head. I am not threatening anyone, Ambassador. I am simply providing context for what I am about to say. She walked back to her seat but did not sit down. The collective has spent 50,000 years building moral authority. You have convinced yourselves that this moral authority gives you the right to dictate terms to other species. You have forgotten something important. And what is that? Authority without power is just opinion. The words hung in the air like smoke. Veleth opened his mouth to respond, but Helena continued. 300 years ago, humanity was confined to a single planet. We had no starships, no colonies, no place in the galactic community. Do you know what we had? We had each other. We had an understanding that the universe does not care about moral authority. The universe respects only those who can defend their people and their principles. Helena sat down, her eyes never leaving Veleth's. The Imperium will not withdraw from the Kepler Reach. Our citizens have built homes there. Our children have been born there. Our dead are buried there. No amount of moral lecturing will change that fact. Veleth's 4 hands clenched beneath the table. You would risk galactic condemnation? You would make enemies of every civilized species. Helena laughed softly. Ambassador, we have studied the collective's history quite thoroughly. You have never faced a species that refused to bow to your moral pressure. Every time a conflict arose, you simply talked your opponents into submission. You convinced them that fighting you would be wrong, that cooperating with you was the enlightened choice. She leaned forward. But here is what you failed to understand about humans. We do not believe that might makes right. We believe that right must be backed by might. We will not attack you. We will not invade your space. We have no desire for conquest, but we will defend what is ours. And if the collective chooses to make this a conflict, you will discover that moral authority does not stop plasma torpedoes. The conference room fell into complete silence. Veleth could feel his heart racing. In 50,000 years of diplomatic history, no species had ever spoken to the collective this way. It was unprecedented. It was terrifying. This is not how civilized species behave, Veleth finally managed. Helena stood up again, and her officers rose with her. Ambassador, with respect, the collective has spent so long telling other species how to behave that you have forgotten how to behave yourselves. You came to this meeting expecting us to fold under moral pressure. You expected us to feel guilty about our expansion, our military strength, our unwillingness to submit. Instead, you found something you were not prepared for. And what is that? A species that knows the difference between claiming authority and having it. Helena walked toward the door, then stopped. The Imperium remains open to legitimate diplomatic discussions. We are willing to establish trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cultural exchanges with the collective. What we are not willing to do is pretend that your moral opinions carry any weight with us. If you want influence over human affairs, you will have to earn it through partnership, not lectures. She turned back to face Veleth one final time. The Imperial fleet will be conducting training exercises in the Kepler Reach next month. 20 battle groups, approximately 4,000 ships. You are welcome to send observers if you wish to see how the Imperium defends its citizens. Perhaps it will help the collective understand the reality of the galaxy they claim to govern. With that, Admiral Helena Cross and her officers left the conference chamber. Veleth sat alone in the silence, staring at the holographic map. The red dots of human territory seemed to pulse with a new significance. For the first time in his long life, he understood something that his species had forgotten. Power was not about numbers on a display or the size of your territory. Power was about will. It was about the determination to protect what mattered, no matter the cost. The humans had that will. The collective, for all its ancient wisdom, had lost it long ago. 3 days later, Veleth submitted his report to the Council of Elders. He recommended immediate diplomatic engagement with the Terran Imperium on equal terms. He recommended abandoning all claims to moral authority over human affairs. Most importantly, he recommended something that no collective official had suggested in millennia. He recommended building more ships. The Council rejected his recommendations. They were too proud, too convinced of their own righteousness. They believed that humanity would eventually see reason. They believed that moral pressure always won in the end. They were wrong. 6 months later, the collective attempted to impose economic sanctions on the Terran Imperium. Within weeks, 7 species that had previously bowed to collective authority announced trade agreements with humanity. Within months, 3 more species requested military alliances with the Imperium. The collective's influence, built over 50,000 years, began to crumble like ancient stone. Ambassador Veleth watched it all happen from his observation deck. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to explain that the galaxy was changing, but the collective had refused to listen. They had clung to their moral authority, never understanding that authority was meaningless without the power to enforce it. The humans had understood this truth from the beginning. They had never claimed to be morally superior. They had simply claimed what was theirs and defended it. And in doing so, they had exposed a great lie that the collective had told itself for millennia. There was no moral authority in the universe. There was only strength and the wisdom to use it well. The collective had forgotten the first. The Imperium possessed both. As Veleth watched another species sign a treaty with humanity, he allowed himself a small, bitter smile. The galaxy had a new power now. And unlike the collective, the humans had earned their authority the only way that truly mattered. They had claimed it, and they could keep it.